with, I think you know me. For the rest, I'm Mayo Haddon. I go by the nickname Biff. I'm a retired full colonel out of the Army Special Forces with a family that has a Navy career and Navy background. I'm currently the regional coordinator for what we call Region 4 under Department of Defense. Region 4 is basically Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and then we include Puerto Rico. Across the country, I've got 19 teammates, one of them in Region 4 up at Fort Stewart. That's Lisa Gonan. Regional coordinators work directly with the recovery care coordinators, the transition assistance teams, and most importantly, those service members getting ready to separate, and in many cases, those that have just separated. Each individual is treated individually by us, and we have two very specific programs that we work. The first is education and employment assistance. When a veteran, soon-to-be veteran, is getting ready to separate, we recognize, like the whole recovery program, that the folks that are in this program, these outstanding young men and women, are faced with something that's different than their contemporaries. They were on a career path that suddenly stopped. So our whole program, partnered with yours, steps in to assist them. We encourage, under education and employment, all service members that are separating to look very carefully at taking courses that can add to their college, courses that can add to their technical skills, or courses that can add to certification. Those are the components that the employers are looking for. So we encourage them to take advantage of the time they have and the resources they have to enhance their skills for this separation. Our next step, which goes along partnered with the other, is the employment assistance. Most important in that process is helping the service member create or improve their resume. And equally important is helping them resume for the type of position they're actually looking for. When I get with my 19 teammates, we share information on employers nationally, regionally, and locally. Because we know that when a service member separates, the vast majority of the time, they're going to head back closer to home before they entered the service. And we try and match them with employers where they're relocating back to. Personally, in my on-computer Rolodex, I've got Amazon, Google, Facebook, and a number of IT organizations, because a lot of our service members have much greater computer skills than even they recognize. They take a lot of them for granted. When they're working non-secure or secure systems, they're working two totally different kinds of IT networks. We try and take that information and make sure it's in the resume, and then help them get that resume to the recruiters. I work with recruiters on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. Depends on the organization. All of my teammates work a little differently, but we all have that same objective. Because we don't know if somebody separating has avionics experience, power plant experience, nuclear reactor experience, operations, management, intelligence analyst. They come from such a wide variety of backgrounds. We try and leverage that in helping them make decisions that they have to make on what they want to do next. So if we're successful in getting them into some educational effort that will lead towards employment after the military, and then help line them up with an employer for an interview with a really good resume, we have solved the problem that the vast majority of our service members have. They get ready to get out, they blast out 100 resumes, and they will be lucky if they get one response. We actually do the handoff. If I'm dealing with a service member that wants to work for Department of Homeland Security, I actually take their resume, review it very carefully, and personally hand it off to the lead recruiter for Department of Homeland Security or FEMA, because FEMA is the entry point. It's the quick way to get into Homeland Security. If they want Department of Justice, it's a little bit longer process because there are different steps that they have to go through. It sounds easy, and it is easy, but when you're working, let's say 100 cases at any one time, and you're working each individually very carefully, it's a very careful process because we truly care about the service member we're helping and trying to make sure we're really getting them into the exact position that's best for them. To do that, all we need is what we call the E2I application form. That's Employment and Education Initiative application form. And the reason that's important is because that form has the signature of the service member, and that basically, under the Privacy Act, gives us their permission to use their resume to help them get in the door with an employer. It's a federally required step that we follow to make sure we're not violating the law. Then we work on that resume to make sure it's grammatically correct. It looks presentable. Try and encourage them to take some of the graphics off or reduce the multitude of colors they sometimes use, because they don't realize that that first resume that goes out typically goes through a computer screening, and all they're looking for are keywords. When you go to USA Jobs, that computer screen matches the keywords that are in the resume with the keywords for the position they're applying for. And if those keywords don't match up, they do not make that cut. And most of them wonder why they never got a response. Most of us have been in this long enough to understand how to make that a much more successful process for the service members. Typically, and there is no specific time that we use as a gauge. I've worked with Navy service members for as short as a month when I get their first contact and they're separating, which means I've got to work very quick, to a case where I've got somebody who's going to be in long-term recovery. I'll be working with them for over a year. When I get somebody that's going to be available for 4 months or longer, I brief them on the Operation Warfighter program. Operation Warfighter is an internship with a federal agency. The number one question I get is, does this guarantee me a job? And my response is no. But an internship gives you a job on your resume with a federal agency that's experienced outside of the service branches, and it becomes a major enhancement for job selection. We're running, and this is in Region 4, about 75% of those who complete an internship of 4 months or longer are actually offered a job by that agency. And if they can't put them to work immediately, I've had them put them in a contractor position for 1, 2, 3 months, waiting on a school to open up for that agency. They then get the endorsement based on their internship. They are then encouraged and supported to actually submit their application. And we're running about a 8% success rate for those that go through this whole process. When you realize that we cover such a broad base of agencies, our opportunities working with service members are wide open. Example, I've got one right now with the U.S. Forestry Service. I just finished one with the National Park Service. I've had one with the Gulf Shores National Park Service looking at biology on the rivers and the coastal area of the Gulf. I've got them with Securities and Exchange Commission. I've had them with U.S. Marshal Service, within the Department of Justice, the Drug Enforcement Agency, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, FBI. The FBI, there are a lot of service members that want to go after that. That is the most difficult of every federal agency I've found to get an internship with, because you actually have to go through complete screening to include a trip to Washington, D.C. While the FBI pays for that, it adds a month to the processing time just to get into the internship. If they want Department of Justice with Drug and Alcohol, or not Drug and Alcohol, Drug Enforcement Administration, I can do that in a 2-week time frame. So it really varies. We have Department of Interior, the Department of Agriculture, Corps of Engineers. You name the federal agency and we can do an internship. That includes interning on our bases in civil service positions. I've had them with Defense Finance and Accounting. I've had them in IT on the bases. I've had them in logistics on the bases. I've had them in operations and planning. So if one of our service members is on a base and a civilian position is available that could lead to employment, it's very easy to actually do the internship. We've got one who's about halfway through his internship, nearing the 2/3 point with the Naval Reserve Center. I've got another one with a Naval ROTC program. So it varies by service member and location. When I've got a service member that says, I want to do an internship, I try and keep that internship within 50 miles of where they're living. I do not exceed that. And the reason is 3-4 days a week, that's a commute, and that becomes a safety factor, and I'm not going to put anybody at risk. So we will find whatever is available within 50 miles of where they're living and stationed for the internship effort. All of my teammates across the country do the exact same thing. I've got one at Camp Lejeune. I've got one at Fort Bragg. They cover both the Carolinas and Virginia. So you can kind of get a feel for how we're spread out around the country. So if you're looking for an overview of how we perform and what service we perform, that's it. When I work with service members, 100% of them start with E2I. That E2I piece gives me the chance to work through the resume and have their legal permission to use their resume. Whether it's with a corporation for after the military, or whether it's a federal agency for an internship. We use nonprofits to a large degree. There are certain nonprofits, whether it's Wounded Warrior Project or Gallant Few or Semper Fi or the Bryant Bill Foundation, they have resources to resume writers that are free to our service members that are separated out across the country. So based on where the service member is, I work with the closest nonprofit that I can find that understands that service, its MOSs, its specialties, the kind of training, and help them prepare for the next step, which is after the military. This is truly a team effort. As many of you know, I work with all of you when it comes to individual service members. At the same time, when somebody asks for help, at least the way I work, I put them into a distribution base because every week I get anywhere from 1 to 5 different kinds of job postings. Everybody in that distribution list is going to get from me blind copy. So I do not share emails between service members, period. But I will send to each of them these job postings because it opens their eyes into what kinds of jobs are available and where. And they might find that a job is different than they were thinking about, but it's really something they're interested in. Best example I can give you is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They will send me a job listing about once every 2 to 4 weeks. It varies from as few as 6 to as many as 40 job postings across the country. Now, when you think U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, these are park rangers, these are tour guides, these are biologists, these are technicians dealing with fish and game. So it's, what you do find when you get these and begin to read them is there are more different types of jobs than the average service member realizes. And I encourage them to open it up, read it. If you find one you like, let me know. I'll encourage you, once I do a review of your resume, to apply or not apply, because I don't want them to waste time. But if they apply, then I will follow up with a recruiter. And we've been very successful in helping service members find jobs. I just had one get a job with Fish and Wildlife through the Forestry Service, and he's moving to Michigan. He did an internship with the Forestry Service, found a job with Fish and Wildlife up in Michigan. Forestry Service has helped him with a recommendation, and he's already been told he's going to be a candidate. So that's where our uniqueness fits in, because as a network, I can hand off to my counterpart at Fort Drum, New York, or Fort Campbell, Kentucky, or Fort Carson, Colorado, or Fort Lewis, Washington, or San Diego, and geographically automatically have the service member who's moving in touch with a new point of contact who's working the area where they're relocating to. It's a very unique structure. It's a very unique organization, and it's all designed to help that service member who's nearing separation to make their transition easier. You know, this is one of those subjects you can talk about, or you can just answer questions. Because sometimes it's the question that's asked that comes from a different perspective that helps everybody see a different part of this that we just overlook. So I would open it up to questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
You know, Teresa, that's a lot of information in a short period of time.
Well, thankfully we've recorded this, so we'll have it available for our enrollees. And if they do have any questions later, what is the best way for them to be answered?
You know, with today's technology, all they have to do is call, text, email. I have done one-on-one with recovering service members through Zoom to walk them through very specifically how to help them make this transition easier for them. And it's really dependent on the service member and what they need and what they would like.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we do appreciate all that you do for our veterans and for taking the time to do this video with us for our enrollees. It's much appreciated.
It's our pleasure. There are some resources. You can actually go to our website and download a couple of really good guides. There's the biggest one is one we actually put together for caregivers. But in that caregiver guide, you've got a wealth of resources, and they outline all of this information. There's one that I got from the VA because I have become, in many cases, tied to the Veterans Administration. We need to understand their VR&E program. We need to understand their transition assistance program. And they just came out with a brand new electronic guide to help veterans in this transition process. And it's a very good reference. You can download both of those to your laptop, and they're just a handy reference to have available.
Thank you for that. I will find and add the links below in the topic of this video so that they can reach out and pull those for themselves.
I can send you the VA link because it just hit the street. And I can send you the link to the Warrior Care program. It's the caregiver directory, because we update that as every time a nonprofit or another organization sends their information to our office in the Pentagon, we add them to that directory. So it's as current and contemporary because it's a great guide for our service members, their caregivers if they need and have one, and all of us who are those that pull the resource together to help the service members. And hopefully that has helped.
It has been a tremendous help, and I will pull those resources that you've talked about. Perhaps we can get together after this call, or you can just email them to me, and I'll make sure to add them, and your contact information, and I'll make sure to add them in the description of this video.
That would be appreciated, and don't ever hesitate giving my contact information to a service member. And like some of you, I also work with spouses. And the reason is sometimes a service member who's gone through the med board is not ready for full employment, but the spouse is. So I'll work with the spouse as long as I know where they're moving to and have legal permission and have the resume. I will work that through the employer who's willing to just say, come on down and go to work for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we look forward to maintaining our relationship with you and sending more years your way.
Listen,
Have a great day.
I want to thank you.
Hey, thank you, Biff. Thank you, Therese. Appreciate it.
Hey, Chet, thank you. Look forward to seeing you again down in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been a while.
Or else I'll come over to Jack's.
There you go. There you go.
You have a great team and a great day.
All right. Take care.